Hi traders, it is Sunday the 20th of March and I'm just preparing my watch list for the week commencing the 21st. I am still on holiday, so this is going to be a faster, hopefully sort of shorter recording for this week, and then I'll get back on. So I'm not going to include fundamentals today. The war's still on. Nothing has essentially changed. I don't see any high risk things coming our way, but anything that, any unforeseen things will still be, obviously they can still occur. So starting off, having a look at the US Volatility Index, we've had a bit of a drop in terms of volatility here, and I think that's more relative to what we've had going on recently. If you look at that monthly, it's really just back down into this range. Okay, so it doesn't really say much. It does say that there's this resistance you're heading above a certain point. Fine, so be it. We're just going to have to see how that impacts the markets. Now, we've got a little bit of a sort of a range-bound behavior here on the dollar index. So having a look at the dollar index, let's just move this out the way. And so for the moment, I think it's fair that there's a possibility this can take another run up that $99. Overall, also look at it on the weekly here. It's capable of coming back down towards 97, finding some support here, and then carrying on. The monthly looks relatively healthy. So what I'll be doing here is looking and see if we break any of these lows, looking for trades back down to 97, 97 even down to the 96 area, and then looking for some kind of a potential setup there if it's fine support at this resistance, and then a continuation back up. Overall, the trend, to my mind, is still looking more bullish for the US dollar, at least in the medium term over the coming weeks, as opposed to just this over the coming days. Having a look at euro dollar here, this has come back in. Now, again, for me, break of the low here, because we're potentially in an area where price could continue down. This level may well be respected. And so if price this week breaks these lows, I'll be looking for shorts to the downside, down towards 1.08. But yes, of course, within the consideration of the range, there is very much the possibility this could head up towards 1.12 or potentially a little bit higher. So I'll be looking for highs above 1.1140, let's call it that, and continuations up as we head up to 1.12. But if we do start to head down to the low, I'll become bearish below those levels. Looking here at sterling, sterling is coming up again. It's at a level. It's also going to have to determine whether it's going to respect it. Overall, it is nice and bearish on that momentum. We have broken to lows, so actually it is very potentially fair to say that we could find some resistance and continue to the downside. We've got that downtrend on the monthly. We've broken through major levels, and so there is very much, it's fair to my mind, I think, to look for shorts. However, if we do get back up above 32.50, then I'll be more bullish than anything else. Aussie dollar against the US dollar is looking particularly strong. I would highlight here these sort of very strong bullish candles, and it does look as though it's potentially forming a bit of a U shape here, starting to look as though it wants to head a little bit higher, which supports the idea of a stronger Aussie anyway against a weaker US dollar. Kiwi is doing an almost identical behavior, but it has got a major level of support that could turn out to be resistance. So breaks above that, I maintain that bullishness. Breaks below that, I'll then look to be bearish. And it's unusual. We don't see it very often. We do see it from time to time, but usually we are seeing everything against the dollar. Right now we're seeing Aussie and Kiwi are doing their own thing. Euro and GBP are doing their own thing. We've got the dollar doing what it's doing. All right, let's have a look at dollar yen. So this is, to me, definitely on my watch list. We've broken through some major levels here on dollar yen on the monthly. And we're still looking relatively bullish. I do think we're going to have a bit of a correction at some point, if not on the daily, which would be really nice to see this coming back down to 115.50, 116, and looking for longs there. So this week it's possible then we could see a bit of a dollar weakness, and then next week a continuation the following week to do that. So just prepared for that. But I want to say that dollar yen is very much on my watch list, looking for longs principally, certainly on the daily, perhaps in the shorter term as in day trading, back to the downside if it has a nice correction, and then looking for continuations to the upside. Looking at dollar Swissy, also having pulled back into these highs, this is a good area to find a nice little bullish setup here. I do note that weekly rejection candle, and also that is then hinting at a potential, if it follows through on this, that is hinting at a potential weaker US dollar. So all of that looking really good. This is a nice area for it to turn in, but that weekly candle could potentially override it and push it a little bit further. Dollar CAD, let's go to dollar CAD. And dollar CAD also that as well. You can see very nice bearish rejections on the weekly, so this is giving a lot of indication that it's relatively happy to head lower. So that could be interesting to be also looking at the monthly. Some nice failure over there across the price action, or just going all the way back to almost a whole year ago. And so therefore trades lower could also make a lot of sense here, which hints at a weaker US dollar. So there we go. So far seeing a bit of evidence that supports the idea of possibly getting a weaker US dollar for the next few days, and then that we could resume US dollar strength either towards the end of the week or next week. So on to the currency pairs of interest for me. We've got pound yen, actually all the yen crosses, euro yen, pound yen, Aussie yen, Kiwi yen, CAD yen, Swiss yen, as well. They all look really good. What I do like here is this very strong bullish monthly candle starting to break through levels of resistance, strong weekly candle. All of these, certainly as we start to break above these levels, I'm looking for longs. It becomes a little bit more obvious looking at, say, Aussie yen, fantastic breakout to the upside. And so I'm very excited about this because I do feel that the last couple of months we've been getting, Aussie pairs are doing something, Kiwi pairs are doing something. I'm seeing some kind of movements in the currency markets that I haven't seen in a few years, and that's a good thing, obviously, here. But see, perhaps Aussie yen, Kiwi yen, looking for pullbacks and shorter term intraday trades, perhaps to the downside. We're talking 15-minute timeframes back down to these levels. I'll be looking at that. And on the higher timeframes, I'll be looking for perhaps swing trade opportunities if it finds support down the line. So CAD yen, another example of that. They're all looking really nice. I think the ones I prefer, the ones that have broken through a level already, and therefore what I'd like to see them come do is come back and test those levels from the other side. Okay, moving on to commodities, so the GSCI. This is very similar to what we've seen on gold and oil. It's come back in, has produced a little bit of a bullish reaction off those moving averages and a bit of a pullback. It's a nice healthy correction. The monthly candle here, we've got enough time that if it does resume this week, we could have a nice strong monthly candle, and that's a fair assessment. But really, I'll be bearish if we break these lows. These lows here, I'm looking for higher lows to basically maintain on that 4-hour time frame. So let's have a look at gold. Gold having sort of produced a bit of a lower high here, and so it's still coming down to test this 1900 level, which could hold. You could see that strong rejection, which could ultimately, it's not impossible, could turn out to be a double top off here. We'll see how that goes. It's too early to tell at this point. Really need to see how it reacts at this 1900 level. Does it break lower, then and then head a little bit lower down towards say 1834, or is it able to recover where it is and break back up above 1955? So I think above 1955, I start to look for opportunities back up to 2000, and it'll be similar on silver. Same kind of approach. You can see that weekly is now in an uptrend, pulling back into the moving averages, or potentially in an area here where it finds support. And so this is not a bad area for it to potentially continue back up. So I need to see how that's going to happen. But as I said, break below these lows, I maintain bearish moves further down. Alternatively, where it is, it could start to break up above these highs. I then start looking for longs. Let's have a look at copper, which has generally been quite messy. This has produced a very nice bullish candle. This on the weekly in isolation is giving kind of, certainly if we break the high, that is giving signals that it wants to try and test that 4.8 level and push a little bit higher. So that is interesting to me. And okay, so I've obviously taken platinum and a few of the others off. All right, so let's move away from metals, which look bullish, but I'm going to keep an eye on those as to whether they break their highs or lows first. And let's move on and have a look at, say, energy sector, natural gas, crude oils. And so here, natural gas looking nice and bullish, certainly looking nice and bullish. It wants to break through this level. A little bit of an indecision candle and just messy, generally speaking, on the monthly. So that makes me very cautious, but it is looking a little bit more bullish than bearish. Let's see how crude oils are going. Crude oil is very similar to gold, so it's had a very strong, I would say, natural, normal correction. I think that's a technical reaction, seeing as it came close to these major levels, and then just pull back to that. So really this week for me is to see if we come back down, find any support in these areas, and then resume that trend. This trend is technically still intact, but we're in an area now where we need to see if it's going to have a deeper correction or not. And you can see here that the buyers have stepped back in. Are there enough of them to push this back up? And so I start to feel more bullish, certainly above 110. Alternatively, if we break these lows. So same approach as gold, not too much difference there. Let's have a look at Brent crude. Brent crude, I was just sort of mapping out an idea here. Does price pull back to this level? It did produce the bullish candle, but it just failed to break the high of that. Price has broken a little bit further down. And you can see the weekly here is a nice reaction back to the moving averages off that 100 level as well. This is a good place for it to continue up. So it's swinging both ways, and therefore it's a bit of indecision. So that's why I'm going to wait to see if we break the lows or the highs before I maintain bullishness or bearishness on that. Okay, on to commodities, other commodities, futures markets of interest to me. Sugar has come back in, produced that bullish candle, so we've got that swing low. We did have a bit of a push high, but we are still struggling at that 20 level, and we can see here that depletion kicking in as well. So it is more bullish than bearish, but it is struggling in this area as well. So it just makes it very choppy to trade. Coffee. All right, coffee having finally given off quite a bit of much needed correction. You can see that depletion in this area started to come back down to the moving averages. And at this point, it's a very similar behavior here. So this is perhaps not necessarily exclusive to crude oils, but just to commodities. And we do know that obviously both Ukraine and Russia contribute certainly to European economies in terms of the delivery of commodities and manufacturing production of those. So we do know that potentially this is just that indecision as to which we're going. It does appear currently as is that Russia is losing the war on the ground. Ukraine is, it almost certainly appears they are killing it, as in no pun intended, and not to be mean, not to be disrespectful about the seriousness of the situation, but it does look as though Ukraine is absolutely defeating Russia on the ground. The question is what are the tactics, what's going to happen with regards to escalation? And we're just going to have to see. This is something that hasn't necessarily happened before, so we need to see how the world behaves. But I think, so serious times. Wheat. Okay, wheat overvalued, nice strong correction. It could go a little bit further down. We'll have to see how that goes. But you can see most of the markets had a big surge up and a bit of a correction now. So that could simply be that, if we feel that Russia's not really obliterating Ukraine, that maybe there's a bit of hope that it's, that this war will be ending soon. So this is possibly where that was an initial knee-jerk reaction and now it's calming back down again. Very possible, but we'll only know, unfortunately, in time. We have to see how the market reacts. Cotton here looking more and more bullish. Really nice pullback here. Overall nice bullish structure. We had the bullish candle. We've continued up. We're back at these highs so far. It's a little bit more overextended on the monthly, but that weekly looks great. We're starting to flatten out a little bit on the MACD, but it still looks nice and bullish. I want to see if we can get past these highs, but I gotta say, looking pretty decent there. Okay, moving on to the global indices. So you may be interested to see what's going on here. This might be something I think for me that is particularly this is of great interest to me as well. Certainly this week, we had a really big, strong surge to the upside here. We produced a very nice bullish candle in the buy zone. This is looking good. We've held these levels so far, have held. In isolation, I would say that this is an attempt for the market is now keen on taking another run at the highs. The question is, can we break through those highs? But the market seems to have, look, I've shed some weights, I've taken a breather, I'm very keen to resume the move to the upside. So what I'll be looking for this week to see if that is ultimately the case, because look, we've got some really nice, strong support here. We've broken these previous highs. We've got an uptrend here. We do need some corrections. That's potentially it. We do still have these lower highs if we want to look at it from that perspective. We do still have a downtrend on the weekly. It's really the monthly and the overall finish of this that is not a sign of weakness. But, we could have lots of buys here and just not have enough here. And that's why I say that although the buyers are stepping in, they could just fail again. So this is where the cautiousness comes in as we tend to move up and test those highs. So let's look at the S&P. Same thing again. Really nice bullish inside candle so far, but a really nice, strong, almost bullish engulfing candle over there looking really good and closing near the highs. So that is particularly good sign, particularly strong for me. I want to see if we can continue that up. So what I'd like to see this week, some really early pullbacks back into the highs, all the highs here, and then a continuation to the upside and start to break above these highs. That confirms that bullishness is there. And that's really that monthly correction that we've been waiting for the last sort of 6 months, seeing that shaking it off. And then let's see how, if it can get back up to these old highs. Because, we've also discussed the idea that if we are in for a bit of a winter in terms of kind of, as the expression goes in the markets, we could see a lower high here. But all of that will take another 6 months to really unfold, or at least certainly 4 months to unfold at least. So I want to see if we can get back up to those old highs in the meantime, or if we fail when we do that. Let's go and have a look at the Nasdaq. So the Nasdaq, really nice, strong, clear bullish engulfing candle on the weekly. That monthly not looking necessarily as bullish, but it's good. All of those are real signs of buyers coming back in to see if there's enough of them to see if they can push it back up to the highs, back up to 16,000. So that's really, I'm leaning more to the upside. If we just immediately shed that and just give it back, that is not a good sign. That to me is what should happen in these situations most of the time. I want to say 99 out of 100, but certainly the majority of the time is it should be taking another run up towards the highs. And if it doesn't, that is certainly not a sign of strength. This is not a sign of weakness, and therefore a failure to follow through on that would also conversely not be a sign of strength. So we'd be getting mixed signals. Mini Russell 2000 really found a bit of a range that needs to break out to the upside. But look at that. We're sort of really in this nice area. If I removed these levels, all we'd really have here is a consolidation and a correction. And then we have a potential swing low here. So all of that really the possibility here for it to resume that longer term uptrend looking good. I have to say, the FTSE itself, a ridiculously kind of big move back up to these highs, closing near the highs. And again, I find this fascinating because if this turns out to be a hanging man down the line, and again, we have a deeper correction and we go into something really big that we've not experienced before, a black swan, if you will. And I saw one this week actually in the bird park. But I was going to say, if we do have that, then that's going to turn out to be a bit of a hanging man with all these little indecision candles here. That's going to be quite interesting. But at the same time, it looks quite bullish. What it is it's the highs that are going to be the trick. Can we break on? Are we going to go back up to the highs and struggle, or fail to get back up to the highs, or just get back up and resume? We've had a month, and then we'll look back 3 months from now and go, okay, look, we had a bit of a monthly, we had a monthly correction, which is always potentially a good idea. Okay, onto the DAX. So look at that. Look at that kind of rejection off these old highs. A really strong rejection back up at the highs, not necessarily, or back up at the open and the close. So just not necessarily a sign of weakness. So in isolation, I've often seen this followed by another move down. That's why I'm including the possibility that although we had a bounce and a real bounce, that it just isn't necessary enough, that there still aren't enough buyers above that level to keep the momentum going to the upside. And therefore, we could just see the market go back down to the lows. So it looks bullish. It looks good. I'm optimistic. But I have to accept, I've seen parts like this where get that strong rejection, and then there's just immediately, it just goes back. And then all of those, of course, then point to more bearishness in the coming months. So caution, obviously, in terms of that, being prepared, not getting one particular outcome stuck in my mind and saying that's how it has to be. Similar here again with the Euro stocks, also same kind of thing. But it's broken through the levels, back up, closed back up above those levels. Again, all of that looking, I would say, more bullish than bearish. The Nikkei, excuse me, Nikkei is a similar thing, but this is arguably still lower highs, lower lows. Not so much a sign of strength, very strong weekly downtrend back up into a level of support that may well turn out to be resistance. So I have to keep both outcomes here. Certainly if we break back up above that, we break these highs, then it starts to look way more like it's a return to the highs, and therefore I can start to become bullish, looking for intraday buys to the upside. Let's have a look at the ASICs in Australia. Also this one, daily looking really nicely. That it's got to get above this range. We've had some rejections over here, but now it looks like it's pushing near the close, and that weekly almost producing a bit of an uptrend there as well. That monthly starting, this is a similar thing here where it was a failure, and that's now starting to push back up. So this one, by contrast, is looking more bullish than bearish. All right, so let's have a look at the equities of interest. Okay, we could see here we've got a bit of a swing low on this downtrend on Royal Mail. I'm going to expect, based off this, I think it's reasonable to expect this to head up to 400 this week, and then we'll see if it's going to be able to get past that, or if that's just going to bump its head and head lower. American Express. Look at that. Wow, just a rejection back up at those highs. Rejection of those lows, just pushing immediately back up. So can it follow through, or is it going to struggle at that 200 level? It's an awkward thing to do, buying here just ahead of a major level. It's very dangerous. I think I'd rather wait for it to break up above those new highs, get free of the new highs, and start looking for those. Or alternatively, wait for a bit of a correction and another run up here. It gets messy. Apple. All right, so Apple, pretty good here. I mean, again, a little bit of an indecision close on that, open and close very close to each other. Nice little bullish candle here, back up above that 156 level, even back up above the 160 level. This is not bad. It could be this week there could be a drop and another push back up. Actually, let's include this as a third option here. This week being that we get another drop. So in other words, we get that drop that we were saying as a possibility, but then it pushes and closes bullishly again. So then we get a second bullish candle. And at that point, it then starts to look to me more likely that it is going to then resume to the upside. So, ARK Innovation. Here we go. We could see starting again, putting on the brakes here. Lots of signs, and within the green box, which is an area where I was saying it's possible that price could turn here. That was based off the higher time frames, the quarterly or annual time frames. Let's have a look and see if it still shows up that way. Yeah, there we go. So this is an area where there could be a nice little bullish monthly candle, because at the end of March, so that could start kicking off in April. We'll see how that goes. Going back to the monthly candle, just putting on the brakes, starting to look as though it's really wanting to take a run higher. So that's interesting, showing some potential there. AT&T, not really offering a lot yet. It's in this area. It looks like it's going to stay in this area for now. There's no signs. It's slowing down, but not really seeing magic sparks there. Berkshire Hathaway, there we go, looking good. Look at the monthlies have just continued closing to the highs, looking rock solid. However, what it does need to do is to take a breather and do a bit of a correction here on the daily. So yeah, nice little pullback on the daily, back into this level, looking for good entries to the upside. Looks pretty good. BP, this will be both BP and Exxon, I presume. You can see a bit of a stall here. lots of exhaustion. Not necessarily bulletproof. Let's have a look at ExxonMobil just to compare that. Even here, you can see a bit of a rejection. So that makes sense. We've seen that happen on the commodities. What I'm really interested to see is if it could stay above this level. Okay, so this level here being previous highs. If we fall back below that, I think that that's quite interesting for what that means. Significance of that. Coca-Cola, again, similar to Berkshire Hathaway, a real nice kind of almost coming back down to those and a bit of a rejection of that. Nice little bullish candle here on the weekly. So again, these could very well, for me at least, be green shoots for the word I think is resumption of the uptrend. I need to look it up, but I think that's the correct term. And here you can see really nice coming back on General Motors, back up, rejected those highs. Really nice, just a touch on that, and then finishing. A good sign, I think, would have been a nice green candle, but okay, nevertheless, let's see what happens with that. I think it's going to tend to go higher. We'll see how that goes. So it's not about my confidence. I'm not seeing very, there's mixed signals here. There's some very bullish signs and then some mixed bullish signs on some of these. Again, here, so many candles. This is unusual. For me, this is a first to see so many weekly or monthly candles where they are closing, opening and closing in the same places there. Okay, but this is JP Morgan. It's come back. It's a good area for it to turn around. It's also within the green box. So that would be a quarterly area where it could resume its trend. So that's going to be very interesting to see this week. Meta, that's a good solid little bullish candle. Back off these highs. Okay, all of that would be standard kind of technically very good potential here for this to at least head up towards 250. If we break the high of that, Morgan Stanley. Bullish candle, perfect in the buy zone. This is the challenge for Morgan Stanley, that 100, let's call it 104, 105 level. That's going to be the challenge, but it looks like it wants to take wants to test it again, wants to take another run at it. Netflix, slowing down, putting the brakes on like ARK, very similar there. So yeah, we could see a bit of a turn, and it's within the box. I had one further down at the bottom of this range, so if it broke back down, it would stay within this range. It looks like it's still within that area, and it might do it. Those are acceptable places if we were going to have a casual correction as opposed to a really drastic one. I mean, that's not the right terminology, but you get it. And look at this one as well. You could see here NVIDIA, strong bullish candle on this. These look like signs of it's going to take another run up. So that could be interesting, ladies and gents. We could see a bit of a return to the bull market, at least for the next couple of months. This could be that turning point. Okay, NVIDIA, let's go through to PayPal. Also, same thing, very similar here to Meta. Nice little bullish candle. Get it back up above these levels and start to head back up to 175. All of those have the potential to do that. We'll see if they're able to follow through with it. Spider, same thing again. Those breaks hitting it up. You can see sort of lower, slowing down here and breaks above these highs on that. And certainly on the daily, starting to see if it can head a little bit higher. I can't really see any reason technically why it wouldn't. All of them are saying that's what they want to do. The question is, are they able to follow through and do it? Spotify, which beautiful, really, really nice downtrend on the daily. Its first real bullish engulfing candle here. This would in isolation be a very bullish signal. Okay, so this in isolation is a signal looking for this to do a move to the upside, and that could even go as high as 200 or 220. I'm interested to see how that unfolds. Tesla, baby. There we go. Nice little bullish candle right within the boxes, all looking really good. These are all areas that we mapped out before this kind of had that correction. Really nice for these to see a turnaround. Can't see why. Well, look, if we certainly break above these highs here on that 4 hour, I think it's fair to say that we could see that start to head a little bit higher, but it's still gonna have that challenge, that 1-2-1-1 level. Finally, Vanguard, strong bullish candle right off that support level, respecting that level. Okay, so lots of bullish green shoots across the board here. Can the markets follow through and go back up to those old highs? I think it's probably safer to assume that they are going to give it their fair shot, and we'll just have to see how they cope. And so on the 10-year T-note, look at that solid rejection and just a continuation to the downside. So and a very bearish engulfing candle there. Looking at looks as though, aside from little corrections on the daily, looks as though they could be good for shorting on that Euro bubble. level of support. If we break it, it's starting to look more and more bullish, but if we break that, I would expect it to continue. And just again, almost that very much at bearish rejection candle, bearish engulfing, looks way more bearish than bullish. So all of these, fair to say that they may well want to head a little bit lower. Let's go and have a look at cryptos. Let's wrap this up. So if equities are showing signs of bullishness, it's really reasonable to say that cryptos will as well. They'll benefit from it. And actually, this is what I've been talking about for a while. We've got our green candles. Ladies and gents, we got the green candles we were looking for February. March, what I was looking to see is to see them break the higher here. It doesn't have to happen in March, but it's better if it does. And I would say, yes, we could end up seeing this week, seeing that close a little bit to the upside. And then to me, that would be high probability of seeing price now work its way back up to the highs here, at the very least in the medium term. Let's have a look at Ethereum, see how that differs. Here we go. So that was highlighting that candle. Yeah, so that's what I'm looking. I'm still maintaining, looking for this to see a break of the high of the previous month's candles. But yes, if equities get a boost, cryptos will as well. Same thing again here. We've just got these bullish candles for Binance. Solana, bit of a real, like, look at that, just pure kind of spinning a doji kind of indecision candle there. Break the high of that. We'll see how that goes. And a Cardano. Let's have a look at Cardano. Yeah, okay. So this is the weakest of the bunch, but it is tapering around. It's doing smaller and smaller candles. This is signs of a potential turning point. I would have preferred for it to turn at this level. Still close to the moving averages, just not the best, most well technically behaved version of this. But it is getting smaller, and therefore this is signs of a potential turning point. So there we go, ladies and gents. I would say that I'm very interested to see if in the coming days we see the markets take another run at the highs, or just try and move a little bit higher. If they succeed in doing that, they are showing an intention to do so, and so I will manage my risk accordingly. I'm not just going to go all in. I'm going to allow for the possibility that they could fail, or they could just give it back. But certainly they are looking the most bullish they have in a while, and it's not impossible that just for the next week they could decide they want to be bullish, which always adds that unpredictability to it. Currency is also looking like they've got some good opportunities. So there are some good money-making opportunities out there, and obviously risk management, being sensible, not being greedy, taking profits, all are appropriate ways, I think, to engage in the market. So I want to say thank you very much and wish you a wonderful week, and I will see you next week.